slowly fought back up to get above 40. And once it got up past that point, that 40 to 50 threshold was kind of where everyone was like, we're safe here, and hopefully it doesn't go below. Getting past 50 was a massive like psychological barrier. And once you get past that, like, I think, to me, breaching the 50K threshold was the psychological win that says restart the bull cycle.
Yo,
what is going on? Also, real quick, guys, we are live right now on YouTube. So welcome, everybody. People are starting to trickle in. We were just talking a little bit about the ETF. No, you're good. You're good. Doing this kind of like on the spot here. I was laying in bed last night. I was like, I haven't tweeted out anything. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to tweet out anything. I just want to hang out with you guys. So.
Yeah. Yo, Mitch. What's up, dude?
Dude, I just thought I lost all my fucking Bitcoin.
We're live, by the way, so don't tell us your seed phrase.
Okay.
Yeah.
I won't. I wasn't going to do it anyways, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you can tell me, you know.
Oh, yeah. I'll give you
Dude, I'll hold on to it for it. Don't worry, dude. You don't have to remember.
Yeah.
So tell us what happened here. You were transferring sats from Strike.
Yeah. So. Oh. Okay. Now it went through. Now, what the fuck? So transferring from Strike, load up. I got my cold card right here, and I exported the receiving wallet thing to the SD card, plugged it into my computer, loaded it up on Wasabi, and then I generated a receiving address. I don't know if you have to do a new one every time, but that's what I've been doing. And so I did that, and I sent like $50 worth of sats, and it went through. And then I'm like, you know what? I can afford it. I'm going to send some more. So I bought some more on Strike, sent them again, and they didn't show up. I'm like, all right, it's just taking time. I went to go eat and shit. I came back like an hour, loaded it back up, and it still wasn't there. So then I exported it. I took the SD card out of my computer, put it back in the wallet, exported the wallet again, and then generated a new receive address. And this time it showed that second transaction, but not the rest of my Bitcoin that was on the wallet. Yeah.
Heart attack.
Yeah. And then I did the recovery thing on Wasabi, and it still only showed the second transaction and not my stash. But I did it in Blue Wallet, and it has my whole stash. And now Wasabi is showing all of it. So I don't know what happened.
Huh.
But
classic goof. It's the mempool getting backed up.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the mempool, actually.
Pull her up, share her. I'm curious to see what it's at, because it's.
I was going to say, should we talk about how apparently bright the sun is in Morgan's bedroom?
I wasn't going to say anything.
I don't know if you guys can see. I don't know if you guys can see in the reflection. See right here?
I can.
That's my light, and it's very bright. But I can take these off.
I'm kidding. I'm so kidding.
No, I did. Actually, I'm going to go grab mine.
I also just came from the tailgate, so, feeling myself a little bit.
For some reason, my school,
green candle's too bright.
So we don't have a game today.
Well, because Bitcoin's ripping faces, and so you gotta wear the protection. Let me pull up the mempool here real quick.
How about that though, man? I mean, we've gone from where were we last week? Let me look here pull up some charts. We were at like what 55 crab walking a little bit.
Yeah.
Right. And all of a sudden we smashed through 61, 62. I think we got to 62 and some change. Still not any new price discovery as of yet. Yeah. So our
just
low.
Look at this. I mean, this is crazy.
Yeah. Let's see this. What we got.
Let me know if you want me to scroll anywhere.
No. To explain to our listeners what we're looking at here.
Yeah. So this is actually running off of my node, but this is Mempool. So this is a service that basically gives you a little bit of visibility into the blockchain. So it'll let you know kind of what transactions are. It'll tell you like latest blocks, It'll give you a sense of how much throughput basically is moving through the Bitcoin blockchain. And so what we're looking at here is we're looking at a couple different metrics, right? So we're looking at and this is just a gradient, right? So I don't think it's measuring different things here. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, right?
No, you're correct. You're correct.
Yeah. So this is basically just memory usage, but you can see over the past like couple of days and this is actually just charting the past couple of hours. But I mean, we're just getting a ton of throughput in the Bitcoin blockchain. I mean, this stuff is kind of come on fire the last couple of days. And I think that has a lot to do with the price action, but it's just really cool to see, right? Like we're reading the blockchain directly and we're kind of seeing the symptoms of price movement. And again, right, like my node is directly reading the blockchain. So there's nobody in between me and this data. So I know it's all legit.
So where these issues arise for Moist, doesn't look like the mempool's too backed up.
Right.
What'd you do, Mitchell?
What do you mean?
You fucked up somewhere. No,
I clogged up the mempool. I broke
just
Bitcoin.
You, solely you. Yeah, no.
Mitchell's moving so much Bitcoin.
I took the network down.
He's moving so much volume. He's taking it down.
I'm
he got too
whale,
moist,
guys. You didn't know that?
Way too moist.
I'm Satoshi.
Okay, so big news. So Sean finally started writing for Bitcoin Magazine. Your first article went up today.
My man.
3 hours ago. 4 hours ago.
I took a look at it this morning and it looked awesome, dude.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Congrats, by the way.
Yeah, mine was the draft that you sent me directly. I actually haven't read it on the website yet. Is it live?
Yeah.
It is live, yeah.
I didn't know. I was told that there was supposed to be like some schedule or something that goes up, and I was pulling up Bitcoin Magazine just to go through some articles for us to go over. And I saw one titled the exact same thing that I wrote. And I was like, are you kidding me? And I clicked on it. I was like, wait, that's mine.
Yeah, let's pull up that article, Sean. Let's kind of go through it. I want to see how much I don't like your writing.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Let me get that.
Man, brutal.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm playing. Sean's a great writer.
Yeah, so I'm probably not going to try and read this like word for word. If you guys want to actually read it, just go click on the article. It's called Bitcoin, the Stateless Emergence. And the headline is Bitcoin offers the ability to decouple oneself from the state, offering financial access to everyone equally. So Bitcoin transcends the nation state and all expectations that come along with being associated with the fiat standard. Let's talk about what it means to be a state currency so we can understand Bitcoin's transcendence. I go in to talk about how fiat currency is obviously, just it's the state, right? It's controlled by the state. You have to have a state ID. You have to have your serial number or your social security number to operate within the system. Like it's very much controlled by the state. And there's a nice explanation about kind of what all that means. And then we talk about how Bitcoin is stateless. And I got to watch the HCPP hacker conference in Prague 2-3 weeks ago. And I heard a really good story at that conference. And it's the account of Urula. I'm probably mispronouncing that. He calls himself the Invisible Man. I think he actually has a book by the same title. So this story, Urula is born in Kuwait, raised in Lebanon, worked in Dubai, and moves to the Netherlands in 2010. It's important to note his father's Syrian. And in 2014, around the climax of the civil war in Syria, his work contract in the Netherlands comes to an end. At this point, Immigration Services in the Netherlands tells him he must return to where he came from. He informs them that he came from Dubai, and they say, no, he can't go to Dubai because he's not a national of Dubai. He then tries to go back to Lebanon, which is where he was before Dubai, and they say, no, you're not a national. You have to go back to where you're actually a national, which is Kuwait. Syria, because his father's Syrian. And that's the last place that he actually had like a registered national identity. He doesn't want to return to Syria as it's in the midst of a civil war. Since his work contract is run out and he does not want to return to Syria, the only option is to apply for asylum in the Netherlands so that he can stay. So then he has to renounce his Syrian citizenship, becoming stateless, and approaches Immigration Services in the Netherlands. Now, the important thing to note sorry about that, is if you're applying for, political asylum, you're going to one of these refugee camps. But he's already been in the Netherlands working. Like, he has a house, he has a dog, like, he speaks the language. He's very much like not really a foreigner to the land by any means, and has to give up his home in the Netherlands to go to a refugee camp in the Netherlands. And this process, they tell him, is only going to take like 3 months. So his name and personal information as a contracted worker in the Netherlands, as well as his fingerprints and all form of identification, are stricken from the record, because now he's got to be put into the system in the Netherlands. So he's going to be possess a new identity at the end of his asylum period, which, like we said, was only supposed to take 3 months. It takes 2 years. So 2 years of living in a refugee camp in a country that you've already been a citizen of, that you've been living in, that you had a house in. You can't leave the camp without identification, because there's no path of recourse within the country you live in without identification from the state. So because he doesn't have this identification, because he's kind of locked in this purgatorial state, he's somewhat become invisible. Skipping ahead in his story, Tay talked of his struggles with eating the same food over and over again. After a certain point, the same food repetitively can make anyone depressed, even if it wasn't good to begin with. Luckily, Tay owns Bitcoin and has a mobile device with him. He finds a local pizza shop that accepts Bitcoin as payment, and in the absence of identity, the absence of a bank, the absence of state ownership, Tay purchases a pizza. Once delivered, the refugee camp workers obviously react by saying, "How?" Like, they're you've only got like cash in the camp, right? People don't have identities in this camp that are in the Netherlands, so they don't have a bank that they can use a debit or credit card through. So they're perplexed at how he's actually managed to do this. He explains that he had Bitcoin, that he had this wallet, and mostly at this point, the workers in the camp just kind of give up. They accept that he ordered the pizza, and they move on. Like, nothing really happens in that particular moment. But then other people notice that he was able to bring this in. He was able to operate outside of the state, outside of the refugee camp. So now Tay becomes the bank of the refugee camp. And he started all of this with the intention of getting things into the camp so people could be happier. He wanted to order the pizza just to make people have a better experience in that one day than they had. And then it evolved. Suddenly, people are using Bitcoin to send money out of the camp to their relatives. Relatives are sending Bitcoin into the camp to help with goods and services. And suddenly, refugees have access to a financial system while they are all stateless. So the conclusion is Bitcoin has no state-issued identification, no fingerprints, no credit score, no middlemen. All Bitcoin needs is 2 willing participants with a functional wallet and access to the internet. The stateless emergence of Bitcoin does not nullify the state, nor does it require the absence of the state. Bitcoin simply allows you to transcend the state. So that was my first article.
Fantastic stuff. It sounds okay. So I love the looks like, so this is a true story, right?
Yeah.
And I draw a lot of parallels. So I've recently been reading George Mikhail's book, Thank God for Bitcoin. And there's a section in there where he's talking about how currencies evolve in places like prisons, right? And so like people there are trading with things like Tide detergent, or like cigarettes, like certain brand cigarettes and stuff. And it very much is like a, I don't know if decentralized economy is the right word, but like a barter type economy. And like there's a lot of parallels there between like your article and that, and like what Bitcoin's bringing into the table, that I think is very interesting. I think we could have a pretty good conversation around that. But yeah, no, it's interesting to see how like right now we're in this like weird period where Bitcoin is it is a store of value, right? So we're not in like medium of exchange or currency, but there's a lot of people that are trying to like leapfrog these steps. Not that that's a bad thing. El Salvador being like the main country to kind of do this big leapfrog. But then you have people like myself who are actually taking payment in Bitcoin, receiving paychecks in Bitcoin. I'm I'm curious, what do you guys think? Do you think over the course of like the next year, as like inflation and volatility with the dollar increases, or do you think it's going to be more of like a 10-year, 20-year type thing where we start seeing this shift from store of value to medium of exchange? Or is it longer? Is my time frame like, am I way off on this like realm of thinking?
I think we'll know more by the end of the year, and when we see sort of how price action shakes out this year. But I think we're definitely closer. Like, it's going to be this decade, I believe. But just with the way with the dollar, like, it's not anything. I mean, Bitcoin's great and all, but it more so to do with the dollar and the destruction of that. People not really having any alternative.
Dollar's done is it's showed us that we need this technology, and I think before, especially before 2020 and the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, Bitcoin was kind of this novel thing. It was cool. And tech bros were really into it, and this was something that we were watching and we were excited about the speculation. And then we hit this pandemic and we realized that state capacity all over the globe is a lot lower than we thought, right? And in the places where it's high, you also kind of get this coincidence of authoritarian governments. So that's kind of an unfortunate trend that we've kind of observed, and I think it's accelerated, I think, a lot of the trends that we were already seeing. One of them being the need for a currency and a monetary policy outside state control. Sean, the reason why I love this story is because you talk about somebody who is completely integrated within society, who is generating value, who is improving the lives of the people around him. But the state needs their paperwork. The state needs certain things, and they're the ultimate gatekeeper here of identity, the ultimate gatekeeper of money, the ultimate gatekeeper of your existence, right? And then we see kind of the way that they handle the pandemic, and we say, hey, you know what? Are these the best actors to be the gatekeepers of all those things? And right, and to your point, Sean, like Bitcoin is that third party that allows you to transcend the nation state structure, where these institutions are really failing. And so, to kind of answer your question, Alan, I think, moving from store of value to medium of exchange, maybe there was a timeline out there, right? And I don't necessarily know what it was, but it just moved up because of this whole debacle we've been through, right? And, I see it in my friends, right? Like, people are asking me about Bitcoin. People are curious about what they can do to protect their value and their purchasing power. And a lot of people are asking those questions now. So it's coming a lot sooner than I think we all think. So buckle up.
Yeah, I mean, there's really.
Go ahead, Mitch.
You go ahead, Sean.
I was just gonna say I don't have time frames associated to any particular price action or adoption. Really, I don't believe that it's inevitable. I really don't. I don't believe that Bitcoin's inevitable. I believe that if it is inevitable, it's because of the hard work of people that don't believe that it is, and that they're going out and they're continuing to do the work, and they're continuing to, use whatever terminology you want, whether it's orange pilling, evangelize, whatever. Those people are what make Bitcoin as inevitable as it can possibly be. I think over the course of the next year, we'll probably see somewhere between 1 to 3 nation states adopt it in a similar way that El Salvador has. And thinking on it, I don't know now that I like how it went with El Salvador. Not necessarily how they've systemized it, but more the next piece that I have going out on Bitcoin Magazine is called Bitcoin, the Philosophy of Choice. And in a way, El Salvador kind of took away the choice, right? They forced it on you. You have to accept it as legal tender. And that's not what Bitcoin is. So I don't know as far as price action, adoption, any of it when it becomes a medium of exchange. I know that there will be continued forced adoption similar to how El Salvador is done, and I don't know that that's a good thing. I don't know that that's helpful to what the end to what the the true goal of Bitcoin is. In the short term, sure, nation state adoption will probably help price action a little bit. It didn't seem to make much of a difference with El Salvador. In fact, I think what was the buy $30 in a coordinated buy? I'm pretty sure that just resulted in a lot more selling pressure that day. So when you try to force things on Bitcoin, Bitcoin just kind of punches you in the fucking face and says, sit down and wait. And that's just kind of the opinion that I've taken.
maybe short term, you know. So there's a little bit of nuance in this conversation for sure. So like this goes back to like what I was saying. Like El Salvador definitely leapfrogs some steps here from store of value to medium of exchange. But there's so many things that you got to take into factor here. One, like Bukele's country doesn't operate on their own currency. They're already beholden to the US dollar. And so when you're a country that has no control over your monetary policy and it's in the hands of another country that has no sense of self-sovereignty, right? So like the US is self-sovereign in a sense that it can make its own decisions, but those decisions impact El Salvador and the rest of the world. Maybe El Salvador a little bit more, but definitely our monetary policy right now is what controls the grand scheme of things. And I think in Bukele's eyes, you know, yeah, steps were rushed. But like what better option is there for him? You know, when we've gone through this pandemic, it's completely halted supply lines. It's completely gotten rid of jobs. And like here in the States, like, yeah, it's not great. But further down you go, the ladder, it gets worse and worse and worse. Like that disparity trickles down even more to the people who aren't as close to the money spigot, right? So yeah, it's I hear what you're saying, Sean. Like I definitely don't like the fact that Bitcoin, I guess, is in a sense forced on these people. But the beauty of it too, at the same time, it's forced on the merchants, right? So as like a regular consumer, like I can still walk into a store and pay for things in dollars there. Like I don't have to have Bitcoin. But if you have Bitcoin, like the merchant has to accept it. So it's really more an issue on like the merchant side. It's like, do they want to accept this quote unquote volatile currency? And that's where I'm more interested to see and what plays out like in the internal economics of the country is like, hey, like, are they able to maintain wealth? Like how many companies, how many small businesses here that are accepting both Bitcoin and dollars or taking their Bitcoin and just holding it versus turning it around and instantly converting it to USD? That's what I'm curious to see, especially with the recent price action. Obviously, we know El Salvador has purchased what they're in custody of 550 Bitcoin.
Last time Bukele said something. Yeah, I think so.
It's either 500 and 550. Yeah, no, he, damn it, Siri. I don't know why he turned on. But yeah, the government, the Fed's fucking listening. Yep. I should start getting rid of like all the Apple products.
Listening, man. They're always listening.
Yeah.
I think one of the things to keep in mind too is that, you know, like El Salvador, even though they're adopting Bitcoin, they're still a nation state. And what's the tool in the nation state's toolkit is coercion, right? That's all they have. You know, the legal system is just a pretty version of coercion. But if you don't, you know, obey the quote unquote law, people with guns show up at your house. So, you know, I'm not surprised that, you know, they've kind of done it the way they have, because fundamentally, like, why are they doing this? Well, they think that they can get an advantage from it, right? And the most effective way to kind of implement this is for them, right? And kind of the only way that they might be able to do it and reap the benefits of it as a nation state is through coercion. So
yeah, I agree. I think a lot of it's more like, because I'm really them pushing it on the merchants, and then it surprises me that someone like Bukele and El Salvador would do this, because the way he's been with, you know, vaccine mandates, he doesn't really shout freedom. He's been a dictator there, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know for sure, but that seems to be how things were run before. So I don't really know. I can't say that he's doing this for the benefit of his people, but more for the benefit of the El Salvadorian government.
It's
he probably like,
it's a mutually beneficial thing though, you know. Yeah. Like he knows like this is definitely helping him out, but in turn he gets to help his people out. And I think there's definitely a level of conversation that he has had where like, yeah, this is a little bit of selfish gain, but at the end, like, and Jack Mallers has said this, like this country has opted into like a monetary policy that doesn't have to be controlled by his country. So like somebody in over the pond in the UK or somebody in Canada or somebody in the US or somebody in Asia can code and create these amazing programs and build these amazing companies on the Bitcoin layer. And guess who gets to benefit off of it first, immediately the most? El Salvador. They have that first mover immediate advantage. And I think for us, from like a time frame perspective, it's really hard for me sometimes to recognize like the law literally went into effect a month and a half ago. I know it seems longer because Bukele came out and announced it in April, but the law has literally only been in effect for a month and a half. So it's really hard to give like any like concrete like opinion on saying like, hey, this has been successful or no, this hasn't been successful. I think a better frame of growth will be to see, hey, where are they in 6 months? I think right now, in already a month, more people are on the Bitcoin network than are banked in their own country. So I think right there in and of itself is a big win. Now, I'm curious to see where that number is going to be in 6 months. I'm curious to see where that number is going to be in a year. Obviously, if I know a lot of people, Plan B and some other on-chain guys, Will Clemente, have been saying that price is going to explode. Maybe I've been hearing as low as 100K. I've been hearing people say 300K. I've been hearing people say way higher than that. Obviously, I am very much a believer that I think things might go parabolic here. But if that's the case, do you guys think a lot of countries are going to start FOMOing into what El Salvador did? Or do you think people are going to continue to take a back seat? And we're going to
they already have. I mean, they already have. They're just not disclosing it.
Yeah, I think the ones that are already have, and they're just going to announce it. Like once, it's going to be like anything else, like with the stock market, commodities, whatever. If you're the guy that holds a massive bag, you don't say shit until good news hits because you just want to continue the up ramp. So once that parabolic price action begins and these nation states start seeing, okay, this is where we're going to start making a lot of money, then yeah, they're going to jump in and be like, oh yeah, by the way, we're introducing this legislation, or we've already passed this, or here's the bill that we've been putting through, blah, 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 blah. And then you're going to start seeing a lot more pouring in. Is it going to create more than what currently exists already and just isn't announced? I don't know. I doubt it. I really doubt
it. Have we talked about the ETF yet? As far as
not yet. But before we get there, real quick, Anthony, shout out to you, Sean, saying great article. And I got a question here from AR. He wants to know, obviously, I shilled our Twitter handles, but he wants to know who are some good follows on Bitcoin Twitter. Who are some must-have guys?
Pomp. You got to follow that guy. He's pretty cool.
Pomp's controversial right now.
I know.
A little bit, base, a little biased.
But he's a good guy. He's solid. He tells it like it is. He takes no bullshit and he gives no bullshit. So I'd highly recommend that follow.
So I'll shoot that in the chat. He's at Pomp, POMP. Another great follow, I would say, is Mind Over Matter. I think his Twitter handle is. Yeah, tell us a little bit about him more.
He's in Bitcoin Twitter, right? But he's more of a self-improvement kind of follow. That's more what you're gonna get from him. It's at raw EG Nationalism, and he's like the alpha male of alpha males, but he's not a douchebag by any means. Like I can sit in these spaces and listen to him for hours. I don't know how old the dude is. I think he's late 20s, early 30s, but he's got so much wisdom beyond his years. Especially when it comes to like relationships and like young men, how you should carry yourself. Like I've learned a lot from that guy.
Fantastic follow.
What's your top tip from him?
Don't be a simp. Semen retention. Yeah, that's his whole thing.
Sorry, what was it?
Semen retention and don't be a beta cuck.
Oh my god. Okay.
Well, there's scientific like proof behind it. I mean, it boosts your testosterone and like
think of like he's very much he's very much a self-help guy in relation to like how Bitcoin is very much proof of work. And he's a big believer in this like anti-woke sentiment where he he like doesn't feel sorry for people that don't build like their own success in like your successes in life come from the hard work that you put in, and that hard work should be rewarded accordingly, you know.
And
so you
he's
shouldn't.
a huge proponent of family too, you know, creating
Yeah.
family of your own, like staying in
Some of
contact with
him
your
has
own
popped
family.
up in my feed, and gotta say, some hot takes in there for sure. Hot takes.
He definitely plays into the character a little bit, I will say. I think he's very fully aware of the character he's put up. But when you listen to him in the spaces that he's talking about, like he's very well spoken, very well thought out. While you may not necessarily agree with all the points, like it's hard to disagree with where he's coming from and what he's saying. So great follow. I'm trying to think of some other guys off the top of my head. We have Lawrence on here a lot of time at AxeCap. Yeah. He does Black and Bullish on Tuesdays.
Jeff
great
Booth.
follow. Jeff Booth. Yeah. Also great
Yeah.
follow. We got Pubby. He does his
Shinobi's hilarious just because he's always angry.
Shinobi hits different.
He cracks me up, man.
At NVK is a great follow as well. Bitcoin Magazine. I can't believe I haven't said this.
Follow.
He's if you want quality memes, Retard Scale. Also Yellow, great. Anybody from the Meme Factory is always a good follow. But obviously Bitcoin Magazine, follow them. Follow at the Bitcoin Conference. We're gonna start giving some good discount codes and maybe some other merch and stuff giveaways. So give that a follow. But yeah, let's hop into this ETF discussion. I think it's a little bit funny that all these Bitcoiners are talking about this ETF, but like none of us are going to buy into it or B really care about it.
It's good for old people, I guess.
Yeah.
Old people that don't understand Bitcoin, it's good for them if they want exposure.
Yeah. So I think one of the important things to understand about this ETF too is that this is a futures ETF. So it's not a spot ETF. And there's a pretty big difference between those two. So the way a futures ETF works is the ETF is basically just an agreement to buy or Bitcoin at a certain price at a certain date in the future. And so that's fundamentally how like a futures ETF works, which means that with the futures ETFs, you don't actually need to have Bitcoin to back those shares. And so Bitcoin's not actually being taken off the table. Whereas in a spot ETF, in every share that you issue of that ETF needs to be backed by Bitcoin. So in other words, right, you need to have Bitcoin share parity, and that's actually taking Bitcoin off of the supply and kind of contributing to what we would call Shocktober, right? So I think that's like a really important thing to understand first about like the structure of this ETF. And then kind of what you guys said, right? Like we as Bitcoiners, we prefer to just hold Bitcoin, the underlying asset. But I forget who said it, Sean, maybe it was you. It's like it'll benefit old people or something.
It's beneficial to institutions that can't buy into Bitcoin for compliance reasons. Like that's what ETFs are for. It's for people that don't understand what the hell it is and they want exposure to it without being exposed to the volatile asset. And you know what's his name, Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary. Like he's gone on Pomp at least 2 or 3 times that I can think of in recent history, where he's made it more than clear that he like constantly has compliance issues day in day out, dealing with all the people in his in his company and his board and everything. And he's only allowed a specific amount to be allocated to actual Bitcoin. But then like whenever you have ETFs, whenever you have future ETFs, especially where like Morgan was just saying, they don't actually have to hold the asset. That allows a lot of these companies to get in. So you can take a look at that particular asset, that particular ETF. You can look and see how it's performing. And me and Alan were having a discussion with this before I think we started recording. The price action of that particular ETF isn't going to directly impact the price of Bitcoin. There's one way the price of Bitcoin goes up, and that's the people that are buying Bitcoin decide to purchase it at a higher price. That's how it fucking works. So people buying into the ETF doesn't people buying into the ETF doesn't directly increase the price, but it certainly increases the amount of Bitcoin products that exist, which can theoretically increase a market cap, which brings in more and more investors And if you have investors that are purchasing into an ETF because they can now, because they have compliance and it's performing well, and then they watch the actual asset perform better than the ETF, it creates future buying.
So is the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, is that a spot and not a futures?
That's a trust right now. So basically, they're holding this Bitcoin in a trust, and then they're selling shares of that trust. And so the structure of it doesn't maintain price parity between shares and the underlying asset. And so what can happen is you can get a premium on those GBTC shares, and you can get sort of a discount. So the way that it's actually structured legally and mechanically is slightly different. They actually applied to convert their trust into a spot ETF, but I haven't heard anything on that. Yeah.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah, like the idea behind a spot ETF is that the underlying asset's being represented, and that institution is holding it, and then also that it's maintaining the price parity of Bitcoin. So it's actually tracking it. Yeah, so I think that's how they're slightly different. Also, my nose is like so stuffed today. I have a cold, so sorry everybody listening.
You got the Rona?
No, I got the Rona a while ago, and well, I don't know what this is. It's probably just a little cold. We
Antibodies.
Mitchell
College cold.
knows, man. The colds go around those college campuses this time of year.
Oh yeah,
dude, just wait till you have yeah, and herpes, right? Just wait till you have a
I'm down bad, so I don't have to worry about that. You know?
Yeah. All right, somebody catch me up here. I missed this, I guess, last week. What the fuck did Jamie Dimon say?
Oh, Jamie Dimon was basically just like, hey, you know, Bitcoin, I don't think it has any value. And people were just freaking out about it. That's the gist, I think. Right?
So I think so. So I have this, I'm looking at this funny tweet here, right, of all the comments Jamie Dimon's made throughout the year. So 2014, quote, terrible store of value. 2015, quote, will not survive, quote, will be stopped. 2016, quote, going nowhere. 2017, quote, a fraud. 2018, quote, don't really give a shit. 2019, JPM coin launch. 2020, quote, not my cup of tea. And 2021, quote, I have no interest in it. Fool's gold, worthless. Right. And so, like, looking at like all the things that he has said over the years, like, he can't believe this. He's a smart guy. Like, and so Moise, you asked who Jamie Dimon is.
Yeah.
He is, that's a good question. Is he JP Morgan? I was gonna say Chase.
I think it's the same.
Is he the CEO that everyone's been blasting for the past fucking week?
Yes. Yeah, so yeah, CEO of JP Morgan Chase. So yeah, okay, we were saying the same thing.
Yeah, JP Morgan Chase is the same. No, it's okay. We get a lot of horizontal integration in the banking industry.
Right. But yeah, so no, this guy's obviously smart. Like he's not the CEO of this company for no reason. And I'm of the opinion that all these things that he is saying is because he knows how much of a threat Bitcoin is to the banking industry, right? So let's think about like why would a bank not want Bitcoin, Alan? Like, well, shouldn't the bank just want to buy Bitcoin? And it's like, well, yeah, they obviously do want to buy Bitcoin. It's like buying gold. But the problem is like gold, we don't really know what the cap on gold is. We know what the cap on Bitcoin is, right? And so we're going to get into this problem here. Well, I should say we're not. This is going to be very, very nice for your average everyday individual, especially people who have Bitcoin right now. We're going to get to a point that all the Bitcoin is going to be in circulation, and the banks aren't going to be able to have enough Bitcoin to lend out. So rather than giving these shitty interest rates, and personally, I'm not saying that I will ever give my Bitcoin to the bank because I won't, but there'll be people that do. Eventually, they're going to get to a point where the banks are literally come to you begging to have your Bitcoin so that they can lend it out, and they're going to be paying rates out the ass to acquire said Bitcoin. And for that reason, I think Jamie Dimon knows really where things are headed. And I think all he's trying to do is to delay the inevitable. But Bitcoin has already won. I know Sean was saying earlier that Bitcoin is only inevitable because of the people that make it inevitable. I think personally, we have reached that crescendo now where we've seen how volatile the dollar is. We have seen all the problems that have occurred in the last year and a half. Our supply chains are done. We've hit our debt ceiling already again this year, and we're looking to add what, another $1 trillion?
2 to study the effects of inflation.
Yeah, right.
That's not a meme, right? Is that for real?
I believe that's for real. I believe that's for real.
You're not kidding.
Let me go.
You're not kidding, dude. This is the world we're living in, though. You know, like you say shit like that, and it's like 10 years ago, not even 5 years ago, like that would have been a joke. We're in the point now where it's like we don't know if it's kidding or if it's fact. It's like a total clown world.
Total clown world, man.
It's
fact checked it. It's false.
Damn. Yeah, I would have believed it.
But
I would have believed it.
Hilarious, and it was a great joke. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they put what was it in that damn infrastructure bill? There was like $50 million to study how deer crossing the road affect traffic patterns.
That's dope.
That's actually in there.
We need that. We need that.
Jeez, man.
I stand by that. We need that. That's $50 million. We need that.
They hit the cars.
Yeah.
They die.
I think it's about time to break up into. I think we need to break up into 50 songs.
Yeah.
Call it a wrap.
Well, let's
need to go stateless.
Stateless. So yes, I wanted to get back to this on Sean's article, right? So the state right now, like as we were saying, so Tay was born in Kuwait, raised in Lebanon, ended up living in Syria, and then ended up becoming a refugee because he had no country. And like the fact that like as a person, like you're not allowed to travel and move places based off of the status of your country, like that is very scary to think about. And so like if you apply that to like what you were saying, Moise, about potentially breaking up into 50 sovereign states, well, like what happens if that happens and say like my residence is in the Midwest, right? You can guess wherever, but let's say
let's go out west. Let's go out west.
Well, let's say I'm out west with you, Morgan, and all of a sudden like all 50 states decide to go sovereign. Like I'm fucked.
Yeah, those states don't have a lot of economic power, political power, right? Natural resources.
Well, think trade infrastructure.
You have a tough time.
Like, yeah, I think it would be.
Did you move out west? Is what the move is.
Well, no, you move down south to El Salvador. That's the real move.
Maybe
that's the power. That's the power. Morgan's like, nah, man, MS-13, not cool. But so like the point I was trying to get at here, right, is like the state has got a lot of power over like you're not self-sovereign because of the state, essentially. Like it's impossible to be because ultimately they can determine where you're allowed to move throughout the world. But under a Bitcoin standard, like I'm curious at like we've seen the decoupling of religion and state, like that's been normalized for a couple centuries now. What we're going through currently right now, and I think a lot of people know, at least in the Bitcoin community, is that we're trying to decouple money from the state. But I think what goes hand in hand is when you decouple money from the state, you're also decoupling individuals beholden to financial wealth and financial power from the state. So I don't know, like how are we going to view nationalistic tendencies and identities? Like are these countries
article that let me see if I can find it. It's pretty good. It was on DIDs, decentralized identifiers. Oh my God, it's the first one as soon as I pull up the page. Thank you. It was written by Level 39, and I'm not gonna go through this whole thing because it is kind of long. But let me see if I can screen share real quick because I thought that this was that this was pretty good, because very clearly, like, there's a platform that could be built on top of Bitcoin. So what are DIDs? DIDs, first, DIDs are cryptographically secured IDs that users create, own, and control independent of centralized identities. They include robustly decentralized implementations protecting against tampering and interdictions. DIDs are a simple, semi-human readable syntax that describes a method and identifier. So he goes in, he talks how it's not just for logins. You can attach this to anything in the world. Imagine a future where DIDs are attached to everything, such as schema.org, the agreed upon standard for common semantic data. These objects define practically everything we interact with in cyberspace: grocery list, music playlist, videos, block quotes, blog posts, news events, organizations, products, reviews, places, and so on. The list of things DIDs can be applied to are practically endless. He goes in and he talks about how to, verifiable credentials, how you're actually in control of your digital identity, how if a company, like say Facebook, like they control all your shit, right? Companies would have to basically like ping you and ask you for your DID. And then there's value in that. Like if you choose to give up that DID to that particular entity, what do you get out of that? What's the incentive for you to do so? Because it belongs to you, right? Not that identity, or not that centralized entity. He goes into identity hubs and the semantic web. I thought this was really good. DID documents can point to routing endpoints, places where your data is securely stored. The DIF Secure Data Storage Working Group has a project developing personal data stores or identity hubs, which are private servers where users will keep an encrypted vault of their personal data. And this is basically like Coinbase, right? It's like not your keys, not your coins, not your DID, not your identity. So there will be custodial services that arise for that, but it'll be the same thing. Basically, like there can be a Web3 application that's built that functions as a DID wallet that allows you to control your DID, and then you can choose which entities will actually be able to interact with that, and then you control your information, not Facebook, Google, Twitter, whoever else. So I think further down the road that's kind of the future of how we'll handle identity as we continue decoupling many of these things that should be privatized from the state.
Working on building like a blockchain for IDs, and apparently it's a really hard technical project, so it might take a little while, but I think we can get there. No, it's tough. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Alan, I interrupted you.
No, you're good. It's a really hard concept for me to wrap my head around. I like asking the question, and I like internally, I'm like, it's just too early to ask, I've talked to plenty of people that have been like in the Bitcoin space that have been like, yeah, like hyper Bitcoinization is coming, but not as fast as you think. And there's going to be a very long period where like Bitcoin and the dollar coincide with one another. And when I really think about it, like from like a family man perspective, right? Like I'm more in favor of that because I think it invites less chaos into the fold. But then I know there's like a lot of people out there that are like, rah, revolution. Let's tear the financial system down. And I'm for that too. Also, like, I get it. Like, I get like the like we've been fucked for so long, for so many decades, like as like a collective group of people that like, let's get this done and over with. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. But I think there's a lot of short-term consequences that a lot of people aren't realizing. And I think from a low time preference standpoint, I think it's very good that we let one old system fizzle out and another new system come in, very bare bones.
Bad for society, right? Like,
I mean, look at the last 2 years.
It's got to be a slow transition, because ultimately, as Bitcoiners, what are we looking out for? We're looking out for the well-being of every single person. And so how are they going to be best served by Bitcoin? Well, it's like if they can opt in over time, it's not going to be this crazy, fast, traumatic experience. And by the way, revolutions, like people gets their heads chopped off, right? Like it's just not a pleasant experience all around. And so I'm in favor of a peaceful transition over a rah, let's go beat them up kind of situation.
I hear that, but I think at some point we're gonna, especially the way the last year and a half have been going, it's just slowly one freedom getting taken after another. Just every day it's something new. Like we're about to lose 40% of TSA employees. Like Southwest.
I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. We could do with less TSA. No, I get what you're saying though.
Well, I
I
mean,
get
the
what you're
line's gonna
saying.
be
Get home.
longer,
How am
though.
I gonna get home?
And you're listening, we're sorry.
No, I kid. Continue,
I think at
continue,
some
Moist.
point Bitcoin is the only way to get those freedoms back, and the more people realize that, like, you know, it's going to be gradual, and then sudden people realize, oh, like, it's going to be when the banks are going to have to comply with these vaccine stuff, like, and the $600, you know, IRS stalking everybody's account. Like, at the end of the day, the most power they have is like the tax boogeyman coming to your door and arresting you for not paying your taxes. And like, if we control the money, then we really control everything. And when people realize that, I think it'll change instantly.
The important part, Jerry, just to pick out something you said, is that Bitcoin will do that without firing a bullet, right? And so I think that's the marriage of our 2 points of view. Whereas it is a revolution, but I think in a sense it's a peaceful revolution.
Does I've said this before, and I still hold the opinion. Does the absence of physical violence imply the existence of peace? I don't think it does.
Let's find out.
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. You know, there's a lot of ways this thing could go. I think more and more things are becoming more and more clear by the day.
I think the peaceful revolution part is we take, like, Bitcoin, quote unquote, takes over without a shot. But then, I mean, like, not everyone's going to own Bitcoin. A lot of people, they're going to have all their money in their bank, and it's instantly they're going to have no wealth. Like, they're not going to be pretty peaceful, probably.
Short term, it's going to hurt. It's definitely going to hurt. But like the long term benefits from it. I mean, think about it. Like, I was having a conversation with somebody very close to me today. And they were letting me know about somebody else's opinion of what we were doing financially. And like, on a personal level, like, I don't put any money into savings. I don't put any money into 401k. Like, everything that like savings wise goes into Bitcoin, right? I think everybody here agrees that like Bitcoin is not an investment. It's a savings tool. It's a store. It is a store of value, store of wealth.
Buy Bitcoin in your 401 or your Roth if you really want to, but anyway.
You can, yes, but not your keys, not your coins. I will say that.
Fair enough.
It is an option though. It is an option.
It's already in there. It's already in there.
So yeah, if it is.
Personally.
Damn. All right.
Hardcore, bro. I did the same thing.
I don't have that much courage. Sorry, Alan.
No, you're good. Yeah. So what was I saying? Damn it, Morgan.
Yeah, I know. I always do this. No, so they were talking about so you were talking about how all of us would believe that Bitcoin, it's a savings technology.
Oh yeah. So somebody very close to me was saying that like that I was very foolish for investing, quote unquote, and that I should be I should be saving cash, like cash under the bed right now. And I was like, I think a fuse in my brain like broke, because like I was like hearing somebody say this, and I'm like, how can you be in 2021 and like at all think right now that like holding on to dollars is like a good thing? Like, everybody and their mother is trying to get rid of their dollars. Like, it's Keynesian economics times 10, but like even worse, it's like we are so incentivized right now not to hold that. That's why DraftKings in the last few years has become like legalized, like online gambling has become legal. That's why these shitcoin casinos are like a total thing. That's why people are recklessly putting money in the stock market. That's why we have this whole asset inflation thing in the housing market's out of control. And I think for him, I think it might be an issue of like not understanding that like Bitcoin itself is decoupled from all that. Like, yes, Bitcoin definitely has seen some level of asset inflation from just all the wealth robbery and money printing, for sure. But I can tell you with confidence that when everything goes tits up, like Bitcoin's going to be the one thing that's going to stay the strongest now. I'm not saying it's not going to go down in value. I'm not saying there's not going to be a bear market, but as in terms of store of wealth, Bitcoin is going to be like the go-to for people to maintain any little bit of wealth that they have. And I can tell you, I don't want to be that one person that doesn't hold any Bitcoin. But so
sorry.
Go ahead. Well, so like to tie this all together, you did it again, Morgan.
I
saw the lights turn off and Alan's brain.
It's
just
what I was going to say is after that recession that we were talking about, right? So like in the transition, right? Yeah, maybe we get a bear market, but what does economic activity reorganize around? It's Bitcoin, because fundamentally the protocol doesn't care what externally is going on. It doesn't care there's a recession, right? It's going to keep marching on. It's going to keep providing value. It's going to keep doing its thing. And miners are going to get compensated. And people who use it are going to see the benefits of, instant settlement and global settlement, right? So like all of these things will still be true. And people are going to recognize the fact that rules over rulers is actually Bitcoin, right? Like everything else is incredibly that way. So
I think Jack Mallers really turned the tide with his Strike implementation, Strike API implementation into Twitter. I don't think Lightning has been priced into Bitcoin yet at all. I think finally in the last month, Lightning's finally been realized by people outside of the Bitcoin community and like all the potential it brings to Bitcoin, like as a network. And I didn't realize that up until like a couple days ago. And I still think, I mean, like, and this is talking to people who are outside of Bitcoin, but still in like the crypto space, right? Like outside of that, like normie friends
don't know anything about Lightning. They never heard
nothing. And like when I tell them like it's instant settlement, faster than Venmo transactions, like they like, yeah, I don't care. But that's all right, because, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, it still tells me like, we're early. We're obviously not at the mass adoption phase. We're not at the mania phase. But at some point, everybody will come. I firmly believe in the saying, like all roads lead to Bitcoin. I think in the last year and a half, Bitcoin has become way more user friendly, especially with things like Swan Bitcoin, Strike. There's lots of fantastic companies that are like integrating Bitcoin payments, like OpenNode, Voltage, like a lot of awesome companies out there. And I think we're only getting started. I mean, I really think 2022 is going to be the year where tons of people leave traditional financial tech and the Silicon Valley to come work like on these Bitcoin projects. I think that there's going to be, let's fucking go. I'm early here.
Yeah,
Sean's doing it. Moist is doing it. But we're only going up. I mean,
I'm not leaving Silicon Donald's, but the idea is there.
He's gonna be there though. Hey, you got to start somewhere, man. You got to start somewhere.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, we're gonna hire McDonald's employees over Silicon Valley. That's for sure.
Damn.
Ain't that the truth?
Keeping you to it. I'm gonna go get a job at McDonald's. Actually, I'll be right back.
Well, we were,
an hour now apparently.
Damn. We were talking about that in Twitter Spaces earlier today, or at least I was talking about that. How a lot of these Bitcoin companies, if that's something like, I don't know how many listeners are like interested in getting hired on to like a Bitcoin company. But for those of you that don't know, we all took Pomp's crypto course. Morgan's currently a coach in the course. Highly recommend taking it. If you're looking to network with other people in the area, it's kind of a shortcut to like get there. If you really don't know where to start, Morgan's a great resource. So are all the other coaches.
And by the way, you can do your own education. You can go figure out this stuff this for free. It's just, this is kind of the way we bring this community together, and we think that's pretty helpful. So it's really,
can we talk about the elephant in the room?
What's that?
About the course?
Yeah, go for it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Bring it up.
Huge fan of the course, and I get a lot of the criticism that came recently though, like people can educate themselves for free. I think there's, to me, the best thing about Pomp's course was like the connections and meeting people and like the opportunities that came from it, not the knowledge, because a lot of that I pretty much knew already.
Same.
But I don't like the women only course. Like I don't think it's necessary. I think the original course is just fine for women. I guess it's sold, so I mean, good for him, good for the lady. But I
Natalie,
fully understand the criticism from Bitcoin Twitter, like with the women's only thing, because there doesn't need to be that divisiveness to me. Like a lot of the gender gap things, they're just myths. You know, women just on average go into different fields more. Tech and finance aren't some of the fields women go into. To me, that explains the disparity in women, and specifically targeting them, especially the type of women that are attracted to Bitcoin. That turns a lot of them off, in my opinion.
Yeah, so there's definitely I'm glad you brought this up. So there's definitely a lot of nuance in this conversation, right? So I think the main communication problem here is that they think the course is only being given out to teach people about Bitcoin. But the main drawing factor for the course is to network people with companies already. So if you're like wanting to work for like a crypto company, such as like Coinbase or Kraken or some of these other companies, like Pomp has very good connections there for you. And this is the course for you to take. But I recognize like this is a free market. So like Pomp is allowed to create this course. Natalie is allowed to create this course. But that also means there's a flip side to the free market, and that the people that you are marketing to are also free to give their opinion. And sometimes their opinion is not going to be very nice, you know? So I think there's a happy medium here. I really like to see the community come out and say, hey, you can get this education for free. I think that's fantastic. But I also understand why somebody would want to take something like Pomp's course and have their hand held through the process. Because I can tell you, first time I got into spaces, first time I got into Clubhouse and like up on stage, like I was shitting my pants, like trying to talk, like I was terrified. And it's not for everybody. I don't want to talk at all about pricing and if I think it's fair or not. I think it's up to the market to decide what's fair on a price, and people are paying for it. So it's definitely working. But regardless of how you feel for it, it's good to have options, and there's options out there for you.
I hopped in a space and I tried to, bridge that gap and like explain like the disconnect between.
Uh-oh.
I tried to explain more about the connections, but
no, he's still here.
Can you hear me?
Mitch, do you just want to repeat that? I think your internet kind of buffered there for a second.
Yeah. So I got in a space and I clear up the confusion. The course's design, and it's about really more about the connections. And some of the people, they understood that, but then again, they were more concerned with the just for women idea, which I understand. And I wanted to Pomp's course and then this new for women thing, because I mean, huge fan of the original course. Like,
yeah, 100%. Totally. No, I mean, what I would say about the women's course is, it was fully initiated by women for women. And, I think if they want a space where they can talk about women in Bitcoin, that's dope. I think, like the way that they have to be careful is marketing it as sort of like, this is the only way women can learn about cryptos around other women. Because we've all seen like the Pomp's Crypto Academy, right? The course that we all took, right, is perfectly fine for anyone, right? I don't care what side of the spectrum you sit on, right? It's all good. So, as far as like marketing goes for like the women's course, I think we have to be really careful, because we don't want it to seem like, hey, we made a course specifically for women. And when I say we, it wasn't really me or Pomp or, the rest of the guys. It was, a lot of the women that we work with. We want to be careful to make it not seem like, hey, this is the only way we think women. And by the way, we don't think women are welcome in crypto generally. So I think that's just the point I would make. And, I totally get it. A lot of people don't believe in this gender gap stuff. I personally believe that there are certain cultural factors that can affect how much women make in their jobs. But that's just a personal belief, and those ideas need to fight on, the free and open market. And I think ultimately, right, like the market decides. It doesn't really matter what I think. And so, you know, that's what I would say. But I think a lot of the concerns that people bring up are totally legitimate. So I'm happy to have the conversation. I think I'm glad we're having the conversation, by the way, because I think these are really important things to kind of iron out.
And it's, you know, it's funny he got so much shit in the first like few days, but like most people have forgotten it by now. That's just sort of how the news cycle goes. He got memed hard there, and now people like he's still making money off the course. Like I'm sure there's going to be another women's cohort. It's going to go on, and people are going to forget about it.
I think, you know, also it's important that we have those watchdogs in the crypto community who are always sniffing for bullshit, right? They're always looking for it. And if they smell something, they're going to like let everybody know. And I think that's a really healthy thing. And so when I saw like the reaction to it and I was kind of hearing what people were saying and I was having conversations, at no point was I angry or kind of like, you know, oh, these people don't know what they're talking about. It's like, this is great because this is like the immune system of Bitcoin. Getting kind of ticked off.
Checks and balances.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need it 100%. So, you know,
I'm
true
actually democracy.
Yeah. I'm happy with the whole situation. And I think, you know, everybody through these conversations is learning a lot. And I think we have a lot to learn from each other. So it's good.
Great stuff. Hey guys. Okay. I think we're coming up on an hour. So I think we're going to wrap it up here.
Is it nap time?
It is actually time for me to get out and have some fun away from the child with my very loved fiance. So it's got to have some decentralized time with your plus one. So
yep.
Appreciate you, Sean, Mitch, Morgan, everybody coming on. We do these every Saturday. There's no set time. I know I've said there's set times in the past. There's none. We just do them on Saturday. Live streams on Saturday. DM me if you ever want to come on. I don't tweet the links out anymore. The live streams on Saturday. I put up the redefined edit version on Sunday. I've been terrible about links, but hopefully I can get around to that here sometime later this week. I'm going to start doing some technical tech reviews on Bitcoin related products. So things from CoinKite, things from Umbrel. I know Moist is doing his funny series where he goes around his college campus and is asking people just what random definitions are within Bitcoin.
Field this week with some new material.
But if you haven't seen his video, it's on our channel right now. He just did very first episode of the series, what's more appropriate than just asking people what Bitcoin is. The responses are hilarious. It's very Steven Crowder-esque kind of type video. I would go watch it. Sean just wrote his first article for Bitcoin Magazine. I don't know if you guys caught that at the very beginning, but go check that out. It's on Bitcoin Magazine, and the article is titled Bitcoin, the Stateless Emergence, or you can just type in his name, Sean, that's SHAWN, space last name Amick, AMICK. And then obviously if you want to hang out with Morgan a little bit more, you can go take Pomp's course. Morgan's gonna be dropping content for us here soon too. I know
we're leveling up our editing right now. It's looking pretty fine. I'm gonna send you guys some stuff. It's like I'm so happy with the way it's turned out. So
hell yeah. So we're getting there slowly but surely. The COB blockchain solidifying a little bit.
Alan, I wanted to float an idea by you. Remember how Cody was like his ragey kind of demeanor?
Yes.
I was wondering if we could do a series where it's called Cody Rages or something like that, and we just give him proof of work versus proof of stake, and then just let him go for 3 minutes, and then cut him off.
Yes,
I think that I floated the idea by him, and he thought it was awesome. So
let's do it.
Okay,
it'd be great for the community too. People need to hear those arguments.
Oh, they need to hear some more from the coaches too. I think it'd be really funny to get some of the coaches involved. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. But yeah, guys, thanks for hanging out. Listeners, thanks for hanging in. I tried my best to answer all your comments. Looking forward to seeing all y'all next weekend, and everybody have a good rest of their weekend.
All right. Have a good time, y'all.
See you guys. Peace out.